Molnar. I taught kindergarten in Mount Dora for 22 years. A couple of years in second grade, and then we moved to Eustis, and our four kids went to school to Eustis and Mount Dora, and my husband has been principal of all three schools in the county. He was at Mount Dora beginning with, and then he was in Tavares, and then he's been in Eustis. And we're both retired now and enjoying life in Mount Dora.
There we go. Mr.
Gene Molnar. We came here in 1964. Jack Morgan had been elected superintendent. He was the principal at that time in Mount Dora. I replaced Jack. Super guy. He's no longer around. Had two of his kids in school, Mac and I forgot the other one. It'll come to me about 2 in the morning. I was 32 years old as principal, and I'm now 89, so I'll let you do the arithmetic. I bet you know how old I am. But how long that's been. It was real interesting to come in. I'd been in a fairly large high school down in Dunedin and one in Flint City, and to come to a smaller community, I was delighted. Everybody knew everybody, probably too much about each other. But the schools it was small, and I had 7 through 12, not 9 through 12 like most places. It was grades 7 through 12. And as I remember, the first year when we took the count for the state, there were 425 students in 7 through 12. When we had graduation, we used a stage down at the community building. Had graduation there. And later we had it in the football stadium. Some people didn't like it, but most did. Some people didn't like the concept of having a football stadium. They thought it should be a more dignified place. But when the class marched down the hill on the visitor side to Pomp and Circumstance and came across that field, it was billiard table green, beautiful, no white stripes on it. They came right down the 50-yard line, and it was a gorgeous sight. I still have occasionally someone will mention that. I was in Eustis almost 4 complete years. Superintendent asked me to go to Tavares. Had a problem. He wanted to make a change. I was there 3 or 4 years, and then the superintendent during the race riots sent me to Eustis High School. I was supposed to finish the school year, and 13 years later, I did. Now Hazel said we lived in Mount Dora, and we did. Same house. We've had 4 addresses: East Crooked Lake, Route 1 Mount Dora, Route 2 Mount Dora, 32811 Eustis, 2874 East Crooked Lake Drive, Eustis. And we haven't moved yet. We're still there. We don't live in Eustis. We don't live in Mount Dora. We live in Lake County. If you check the map, you see we were in the county, not one city. I had a ball in Mount Dora. There were good days, and there might have been a bad day, but nobody ever told me about it.
Because there was a big rivalry back in those days. You want to talk about the Mount Dora Eustis rivalry back?
Oh, yeah. You remember Wendy Husebo announced the football games in Mount Dora, and he almost started a riot when he asked, like, before the game started, the Hurricanes were down on the field, and Eustis was still up in the locker room and coming through the parking lot. And so when they got into the parking lot, and he said, "Well, where are the Panthers?" "Here, kitty, kitty, kitty." And that started it. It almost got loose at that point. But Wendy was a great guy.
About what year you think that was?
That would have been in the early 60s. So I came to town in 64. And the racial thing started, in about 66. So it would have been 64 to 5, 6, something like that.
So let's go into it. Let's talk about the schools. There was a phase in right? Where we had kids like Ronnie Sims
Yeah.
that,
He was in my class, and he was the first black kid and he came on his own. It was not like a required anything, and he came and he was accepted by everybody there.
and then like what, 3 years later, official integration happened?
Well,
3
we
or 4?
were part of it. Actually, when the Congress said separate but equal is not fair, that the school board, that the parents would not have the burden of selecting a school. The school board was supposed to draw the zones, and whatever your zone boundary was, you went to that school. Uh, but the black students for high school age went to Bates Avenue in Eustis. And but when the time came, and by the way, there were no really instructions on how to do that. But Eustis High School was actually, excuse me, wrong town. Mount Dora High School was the first to be integrated full. There were no exceptions. If you live in this district, you come here. Uh, I spent some time with Walter Simmons and Bates Avenue School, and we were good friends. Spent time with Collie Lott at the elementary school in Mount Dora. We chatted about things and what potentials, and it went smoothly. Those two guys worked with me beautifully. Fred Sanwall was my guidance counselor, assistant principal, and when the time we had an open house for the incoming students, normally from Roseboro, and so we said, okay, people are coming from other places. So we contacted Walter and said, any of the kids that are in our town or in our zone, we will come get. So Fred and I took our cars over, piled in a bunch of kids and brought them back over, and we ran through a daily schedule for the next year. That started it. We integrated, no real problems. I did make presentations to all the service clubs at the time. Didn't get any real negative feedback any place. People had their own feelings and desires and prejudices, whatever, on both sides. But for the most part, the faculty at Mount Dora High School was fantastic. I don't know if anybody can maybe have a better memory than me. Was there a fight? I taught two, so I think there were seventh graders at the time, a white and a black, and they had a little misunderstanding. Anyway, they were tossing, throwing a few punches at each other, a few unkind words, and so they ended up in my office. So I'm sitting there talking to two young guys, and I said, "Well, tell me what happened." Like, I was not there. Help me understand what went on. And so I looked at both of them, and the little black kid, and by the way, I know his name, but I won't tell you. He said, well, he called me a nigger. And the white kid, well, he sort of, well, yeah, I did. And so I said, well, what is a nigger? And the black kid told me, it says, a sorry, no-count person that nobody wants to be around. And I said, well, I agree with that. I said, and then we have two kinds of niggers at Mount Dora High School. We have black niggers and white niggers, and we have to adjust one to another. And we did. The kids were great. I don't remember a honest to goodness fight. If my old campus was still there, and you told me what time of day it was, I could take a piece of chalk and go out and draw a circle and say, this is where 4 or 5 black kids will be. I could draw another one at a different time of day, and I knew exactly where they'd be. And believe it or not, one of their favorite gathering places was right outside my office. They wanted to be right there. At least they knew me, and there were telephones and all that sort of thing. But the kids were great. Everybody accepted it. Then there were some name calling of me that were not kind, but it worked out. I know that there were misgivings in a lot of places, a lot of groups. But I would like to put in a plug for the Mount Dora Police Department, mainly Chief Bud Hewitt. I'm sure you might remember, but I did not know him naturally until I became principal of the school. We never had any real confrontations of any sort, but when it came time to integrate the school, Bud dropped by and he says, we need to talk. I said, okay, let's talk. And when Bud wanted to talk, we either, if the kids were out playing games, we sat in my living room. If the kids were in watching TV or something, then he needed to go check around town. I guess everybody thought I was being locked up, but I was riding with Bud, and we became good friends. And the day before we integrated fully at Mount Dora High School, Bud came to me and he said, Gene, you take care of the campus. I'll take care of the town. He said, I will never enter your campus unless invited. He says, and this is the part that I wish every police person could hear, I won't be far. And the day before that, a black mom had come in from Easttown, in by the cafeteria, the bus ramp, and she was concerned that are my children safe to walk to school tomorrow? And I said, I know of nothing. I've heard nothing that would indicate that it's not safe. And little did I know, I think Bud Hewitt took care of them. I don't know how many patrolmen he had, not many, but I think they were visible enough that if anybody wanted to disrupt, they would find that they would have an interesting conversation with Bud. Bud and I became friends, and he came to me often if there was a rumor about a student or a teacher or anything incident at the high school. He would say, we need to talk, and we did. I'd like to tell you some things, but I won't, because I get into names and places, and some legal maneuvers that some people might not want out. But it was an interesting time, and he was a great guy. About students. When I came to Lake County, I was totally unaware of anybody or anything about Lake County. I found out later we had a sheriff who most people knew. And he never entered my campus. He never came by. No one from the sheriff's department came by. Bud Hewitt, as far as I was concerned, was law enforcement in Mount Dora. Later, I was sent to a workshop at Stetson University on integration of schools. Well, it was a little late, but I was sent, and got over there, and there were people from the 7 Central Florida counties, and they black, white, and so forth, and to represent various towns. And so we're sitting in there, and you introduce yourself, and of all the counties, of all the schools represented, there was one fully integrated. That was my school. And I looked at it like, whoa, it's my school. Now, you probably thought it was your school, but it was mine. And we had professors from Stetson, from Florida A&M, from Bethune-Cookman. And when I introduced myself, it became real interesting because the black people did not want much to do with Lake County. They told me shortly that we don't go through Lake County other than during daylight hours, and we go straight through. We do not stop. We never go there at night. And they described how they would go around the various ways to go around Lake County. And I'm looking at them, are you sure we're talking about the same place? Because this is not where I'm principal. And it took a while. I invited them over, and they were very skittish about coming, particularly the black professors. But after a period of time, they came over. I told them, you're free on this campus. You don't have to get permission from me to talk to anybody. If the students will talk to you, fine. Teachers will talk to you, fine. I want you to visit and find out whatever it is you think you'd like to know. They had a great day. And they were very complimentary of the faculty and of the students. You can't ask for much better than that from people who are terrified to even come drive in the county. They taught me that. I didn't know that. But things went on from there. And of course, part about being citrus, I remember that because a bunch of guys a little bit older than you would come late to school on a day when there might have been a frost. They didn't smell too good because they were out firing the groves, and they had the smoke and oil smell on them. And but that was no problem. That was part of our county at that time. And those kids made a few bucks. And I was delighted. Didn't interrupt school, interfere with school much. I think they still ought to be doing stuff like that, but that's not the way it is in this day and time.
Down Umatilla and other places.
We first used Bud Hewitt when there was a hurricane. Our first weekend in Mount Dora, and Bud Hewitt comes over and gets Gene, and they go over to the Mount Dora High School where people can come to gym to be safe.
Shelter.
So they were over there, Gene and Bud Hewitt, and I was at my house around the corner with our 4 kids. The hurricane's not going to come on East Crooked on Highland Court.
She asked me, well, who's looking after your children if you're over there looking after Mount Dora zone?
Between school and church and civic clubs, that was the basis of life in Mount Dora in the 60s and 70s. Talk to me about how you feel like the community did during that period, and the teachers. How did the teachers accept it?
Well, tell me when we're on.
Oh, we're on.
Oh, we're on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, if you stop and think that you had a black school and white school, and suddenly you have a combination. All right. If you're a black teacher in a black school, and suddenly it's closed, what happens? If you're a black administrator, what happens? Now, if you're white and somebody wants to redistribute the faculties, do you go from a white school to what used to be a black school? Does a white administrator go to what? Does a black come to white? Those were interesting things to deal with. And I'll have to admit, my relationship with the black administrators was super all over the county. We worked together, particularly Collie and Walter Simmons, worked things together. The way I looked at our community at that time, I was new to town. And the time has changed. There was a place called Winter Park. They had a department store, a shopping center, and all that sort of thing. I mean, you could even go park and walk in. Didn't have to go a mile. And then there were things like art shows, street demonstrations of some sort. And guess what? Winter Park, in my mind, moved to Mount Dora. We're what Winter Park used to be and probably would like to be. I might be wrong. Don't tell them that. And I also feel like as the shifting of the population, that Mount Dora is slowly going to move towards Umatilla. And it's going to be slow, and I think it has to some degree. If this pandemic ever gets over, I think it'll accelerate. But to me, and it's interesting, we started things here in Eustis that expanded to a place called Leesburg. In fact, the lady that worked here in Mount Dora took some of the same ideas over there. And
when you were in the school system, I mean, we had 3,000 people here, probably.
Yeah.
Small little town. A couple of hardware stores, oddly next door to each other.
Yeah.
Jewelry stores across the street from each other, but it was like a real tight-knit sort of, and one of the things and the city seemed to have a lot of support even for the kids, things like the Hurricane Hut. Can you talk to me about the Hurricane Hut?
Oh, the Hurricane Hut was our kids' it was our home away from home. They could play checkers up there. They could play ping pong. Even our kids, had some old articles about Marilyn, who was our youngest, winning a checker game against somebody. But the whole summer they were up there swimming in the pool, and everything was at the hurricane.
It was. They had bands, and they had, and that was. Did the cities support the Hurricane Hut, or was it who funded that?
There was a group called JCs. I don't know whether you're old enough to remember that or not, but seemed like one of them might have been related to you. And those guys were great. They supported the youth groups all over town. Had a golf tournament, tennis tournament, whatever. And by the way, we still have some ribbons at home that somebody gave somebody. And had a great time. And a group like that is just fantastic to have available under the conditions. The integration went smoothly. But if somebody has a negative thought, there's people out there who have positive input. And that was very true. And no one was better at that than the JCs. In my mind, that's just my opinion. I had support from the town, the city.
The Rotary and the Lions Club, all these
Rotary,
civic
the service clubs were all.
yeah.
And I did become a member of Rotary. In fact, we used to have sponsored chicken dinners. And guess who the money went to? The Bible school. In fact, half the people I had, we used to go out and scrimmage the Bible school kids in basketball. It was it was a good thing there, good relationship.
I can remember they'd sell tickets. I'd buy tickets at Roseburg to go to Bible school and have Friday night dinners to stand in line and get dinner at that time.
They still have those dinners.
Do they?
Yeah, we used to call it Chicken Home and Basketball School.
There were a lot of them. I hadn't heard them, but that's good.
Yeah, the civic clubs seem to play like, Dwight was a JC, and my cousin Dwight was a JC, and my dad was in the Lions, and I remember the Lions would always paint the pool every year, and the JCs put on the Christmas parade back then. Now I guess that's the Lions Club, but it seemed like the civic clubs, it seemed like everybody was in one of them or a couple of them, and contributed to the benefit of the town.
Well, our son-in-law is in one, but it's combined. It's kind of like the Triangle Rotary or something now. But they help other folks with things.
Well, the service clubs did a lot of things, and trying to. How many years has this been since I was there? 64. I'm now 89. I was 32, so
You've been in Lake County a long time.
But no, the one of the churches, the Baptist church, did a thing with the seniors, put on a graduation extravaganza at the church. I don't know whether you did one there or not, but it was beautiful and well done. Trying to think of the others. An old brain, it goes through.
You're talking about the baccalaureate sermons?
What?
Baccalaureate sermons?
Well, that was later. Yeah, we could still have baccalaureate and church services when I was in Mount Dora.
And that was at the all of that stuff was at the community building, wasn't it? Baccalaureates.
Yeah, until I was hard-headed enough that I thought that all the parents and their friends and neighbors should be able to come. And some of them thought to have it in the football stadium was terrible. But I told them, I said, I'm not even sure that graduation is for the seniors. It might be for your parents. And I said, I bet there's a grandparent out there somewhere in a wheelchair that would love to be here. And you tell them they park right down on the track and come in that gate over there where everybody else comes in. And they park right out here on the field. And we had a big turnout for graduation. About 5 times what would be in the community building. It was nice, but it just wasn't big enough.
Like outside of work, what did people do for fun back in those days?
we had a camping group that we went camping. You know, or we on Sunday afternoon we'd meet together. Everybody. When did we go swimming on after church?
You know, well, we couldn't swim around here anywhere other than the pool, uh, unless we went to J.C. Beach in Clermont. We tried to go to the lake in Eustis, and we were greeted by
They told us
a
we
big
couldn't.
mouth, just offshore, and the water was so dark you couldn't really tell. So no, we're not going to do that. One time, got the toes wet, and then we went home. Uh, but the pool was great. And for those that could afford it, um, I remember Fred Sandoval told me that we could buy a season ticket. It was a better bargain, and he said he would even loan me $1. Season ticket was $1 per student. Isn't that great? And they lived in the pool this summer, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was something too that some of the parents came to me with is that I remember. One mama had 5 children, and they loved to swim. We had the swim meets in the summer, and I remember a nice hot day in July. I know it was in August, and it wasn't long before school was going to start. And it was having a great time. And this mama came up to me, and she looked at me, and I said, "Oh gosh, what did I do now?" And she looked at me and she says, "On Monday, they're yours." And I just thoroughly enjoyed it. She had great kids, by the way. They were no problem. But she had had enough of swim meets and 5 kids for the summer. And she wanted me to share them. And that was something with the police, too. I had a basketball goal set up outside the gym on that parking lot there. The PTO raised money to Pancake Day, and they gave me a little bit of the money. And I spent it to put a smooth cap of asphalt. And people looking, well, what does that have to do with the school? How about English, math, science? And I said, well, we'll see. And the phone company brought me some telephone poles, put them in the ground, put some propped up, put a goal on it. And when it got dark, there was a street light right over them. Guess what? You would have been there. My son was there. And I said something to the police one time. I said, I didn't mean to create a problem for you guys getting this out there. I figured it'd be mostly daytime, but nighttime was big time with that big floodlight out there. And the police told me, said, no, said, that's one of the best things that ever happened. Says, when they're out there, we know where they are. We know who they are. It's the ones that aren't out there that we're concerned about. And it was interesting. A lot of kids stayed out of trouble there.
Golden Triangle Shopping Center.
Beautiful place.
Well, we thought all of Mount Dora had moved out there. We took our laundry on Thursdays, and we went to. They had 2 grocery stores. I think Winn-Dixie was one, and I'm not sure.
Pantry Pride, maybe?
Pantry Pride, yeah.
Yep.
So we went to both those grocery
Grants.
stores and found out whatever the bargains were and got that. So Thursday afternoon was our afternoon at the their little shopping center. Who was the family that had the one
Fred and there's a family that ran that thing. Fred, a big tall guy, was real active in Bay Street Players and Ice House.
I don't know, but their 4 sons helped with the laundry at the laundromat. I think. So, yeah.
Where were some of your favorite places to go eat back then?
Bud's Gizmo. I mean, that was just right down the street from us,
I've been waiting for somebody to bring that up unprompted. That was my favorite place.
How about Fralix?
Fralix.
Yeah, that was afternoon.
Yeah, we had the
after
sons
dinner.
from Fralix
Yeah.
at school. And, we ate there a lot. But the main thing with the Gizmo is I'm a retired Marine also, but school teacher. And we had interesting conversations with the Gizmo. It was always fun.
Well, just so these young'uns know, before the Big Mac ever existed, there was the Gizmo, which is a Big Mac. We did what all small town Southern kids do: is we got in our cars and we would cruise to McDonald's and sit in the parking lot. What did kids in the 60s do? Did they have like a cruise spot? What did they do?
Well, depends on what you're talking about. The period of time when the hippie thing started, the marijuana thing started. A young lady like this would come to school and very fashionable with shoes, which was a shoestring tied around the ankle and loop it around the middle toe, and that was shoes. Well, no, you go home with them. And dress and appearance was a big thing. I hate saying it, but in case some of my old students are watching, my hair is not acceptable at Mount Dora High School. It's too long. The sideburns are okay, but it needs to be off my ears and off the collar. And the young ladies had a dress code, believe it or not. Remember, we went through the long skirts and we went through the mini skirt, and that was an interesting period of time. The girls I thought were real clever. They made my life interesting. They left home with their skirts or dresses below the knee. By the time they got to school, it was above the knee, and it might be up to mid-thigh. They knew how to roll the waist. It rolled the waist. They caused me a lot of trouble because, somebody would call the student about violating their dress code. Well, you call the parent, they unroll it. What dress code?
Yeah, he
So
got
it was
in
fun.
trouble. That
Yeah.
I can remember that they seemed like the principal. They
Yeah.
called some
And,
of the parents called a meeting to
Yeah.
because he was
And I
not.
had a PE teacher that would get the girls pretty good in the outdoor gym. You pull out the bottom row of seats, not the whole row, just the bottom row. And she'd say, get on your knees. If your skirt's not touching the seat, you're wrong. When we first integrated, if you can imagine, football season's in. It started before school opened. So you have preseason. Well, that helped. I can remember we had a bunch of white kids and a bunch of black kids out playing football. It's hot in August, September. They get sweaty and they smell. And guess what they do when they go to the gym? They take off their sweaty clothes and they go take a shower. And one of my favorite recollections is a mama who is from the deep south. She told me, she said, well, Gene, she says, her son came home after the first day of practice. She says, well, how did it go? And her son looked at her and said, Mama, do you know they're black all over? I like that.
Wow.
Think about it. We got white kids and black kids in the shower. Okay, I know people that would have loaded shotguns on that. And then as school started, the girls did not have the fall sport. And the PE teacher, female, great gal from Tavares, later was in Claremont, and she's passed away. But I found out why we didn't have any problems with the girls. Well, the girls went out for PE. They did the same thing. They got hot and tired, sweaty, and came in to change. Some did not want to take a bath. And guess what? Betty said, this is how you do it. She kicked off her shoes. She took off her top. She took off her bottom. She did that 5 times, 5 periods of the day. I had the cleanest female PE teacher in the state of Florida. But there were no complaints. The girls, okay, this is how you do it. And that would end it. And I can tell you another one with her. The girls were changing clothes and doing their thing. And I happened to need somebody, flipped on the PA system, a switch sound right. And I was listening, it was quiet, and then I heard the PE teacher say, "All right, everybody, pull up your skirts." Okay. So I thought it was about time for me to head down towards the gym. So I get down there, and someone had stolen, one of the girls had taken someone else's underwear. So she said, "Pull up your skirts, I want to see." They found the underwear, by the way. And it worked, and we didn't have any problem with clothes after that.
But I know that you had absolutely no problems with your second grade class at all. Just
I
none.
would have known integration was. I mean, it was. You know, in fact, I don't. I'm trying to think. From the first class I had, they were black as well as white, so we didn't.
There were a couple in there.
Yeah.
You named one of them a while ago in the
Well, you're
kindergarten.
Ronnie.
Ronnie, yeah,
Mm.
Ronnie's name.
You got anything else? Anything that you think we really, really ought to know about Mount Dora?
It's a great place to live.
We're still here.
Yeah.
Had never heard of it. I'm glad we stayed.
The house we're in was called Mount Dora when we first moved there. With the Crunk, delivered mail, Route 1, box 1041. And then we got bigger, and it was Route 2, box 1041. And then we somehow or other, we got to be in Eustis instead of, then we had another one, 32811 something. Our mails changed to different, well, I guess it was 4 different times, but we're now Eustis, even though we started out Mount Dora.
Well, I want to thank you for coming. This has been wonderful.
It's been very interesting for me to hear all these things.
Yeah.
It's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you. That was a perspective.
Are we still on?
Yeah, but
No,
I
well, I was going to deny everything.
The teachers, did they tend to be friends with each other and their kids play together?
Well, you were scattered all over, and at first there were no black teachers. I know one of the first black teachers that I hired was to replace Doris Camp, the business teacher. She and her sister, Doris Dismuth, were long time outdoor people. And when she retired, I hired a black lady to come in. She did fine. There were no real problems. I think people were just reasonable. It's like, it's not necessarily the way I want it, but this is the way it is, and I must adjust. I don't expect the world to adjust to me. I adjust to the circumstances that are around me.
Well, I remember your black teachers at Eustis, like Jimmy Lee, Bell, and whoever else. Your black
Some of my best friends are black teachers and coaches.
Spears, yeah.
Bert, yeah.
When
Bert,
we first came,
she taught math.
when
He
we-
taught math.
When we first came to Mount Dora, this gal that out at Lake Jim invited our whole family out to her house, and we had dinner. And then Dan Spears' wife invited us with 4 kids, you know, that were aged what 4 to 10 or something, I don't know. But they were so sweet. I just didn't expect somebody to invite the whole family, you know, maybe Jean and I, but.
What was he like? I know what he was like as a teacher, which was very frightening. But what was he like?
Well, Marilyn seemed to Marilyn, our youngest, when she liked math, and she seemed to get along, and she and Bert Spears they were really.
But what was Mr. Spear like?
She
Yeah.
liked Dan. Dan called her Maryline instead of Marilyn.
Was he real talkative? Because he was always kind of quiet and
Well, he was around the groups I was with, but
grumpy.
I think in class it would strictly be business.
It was.
It was business, yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of rough.
In fact, I hired Dan Spear's replacement. And then I also rehired Dan Spear when he changed his mind about retiring. So I got rid of him and brought him back in. He was good, and he was a good friend. I enjoyed Dan.
Yeah, we had some good teachers there. Dent Willis, I remember, was this real tall gal. She taught English, I think.
You know, she was language Spanish.
Yeah, brings back old memories because you know our kids. You know, Wayne graduated. Our son graduated from outdoor, and the girls all. When Gene got moved, we wound up over in Tavares for the.
Well, we built a house across Jack
Yeah.
Natchez,
Mhm.
across 441. Well, that was not the Mount Dora School Zone. It wasn't at first,
Yeah,
but
that's right
when
there.
we built the house, they changed it to Eustace High. And,
Yeah, I remember the bus stopping it for that one guy that's down there.